Happy tax season, everybody. Tax season is less than 2 weeks away. Tax day. Are you ready? Me neither. But that is the subject of tonight's Left Hook, Right Jab. We are asking Steve Novick and Lars Larson how they feel when it comes to paying their taxes. Welcome, gentlemen. And here is your question. When you think about how your taxes are spent, do you feel good about it or do you feel annoyed and angry? And Steve, you're up first.
Well, Lars, 2/3 of the federal budget goes to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the military. I happen to think we spend too much in the military. We spend 3 times as much as China, our closest rival. But overall, I feel pretty good about that. And the rest goes to a few other things like education, transportation, etc. Your state income tax dollars, 90% of them go to education, K-12 through higher ed, to health care, including long-term care for seniors and people with disabilities, and to public safety, prisons, courts, child protective services. I think we spend a bit too much in prisons, but overall, I feel pretty good.
I got to tell you, Steve, that I feel good about some of the things my tax dollars go to, but out of $9 trillion in state and federal spending, you'd have to find at least a few good things. Here are the bad things. The government will always use your money less efficiently than the private sector or you yourself. Why? Because they treat it as other people's money. So you get a lot of cockamamie studies. You get a Ponzi scheme that you just mentioned called Social Security that is functionally bankrupt. So you're pumping money into a system that most of us won't be able to count on. And you get government bureaucrats who only want to grow their bureaucracies. Just take a note that every time the government has been shut down, I know everybody gets excited, 800,000 non-essential personnel go home. Any organization that has 800,000 non-essential personnel, and that's only at the federal level, not the state level, cannot be doing a good job with your money.
Well, Lars, I'm glad you admitted that you don't like Social Security, the biggest federal program and the most popular program of all, which is actually very efficient. The fact is, most Americans like public schools, they like health care for seniors and people with disabilities, they like Medicare, they like Social Security, and you'd like to spend more money in the military. By the way, some things you conservatives like to exaggerate, like foreign aid, that's 1% of the federal budget. Welfare and food stamps combined, that's 2%. Lars, you're not in step with the American people.
Steve, I love schools too, but I think it'd be done more efficiently by the private sector. Let me give you my favorite example of how your government money is done. The U.S. Postal Service begged to be taken aside as a separate agency 40 years ago, and they said, we'll at least pay our own bills. This week we found out that the U.S. Postal Service lost $2.7 billion just last year. Now, compare that to FedEx or UPS or any of the other private delivery services that actually make a profit. The fact is that when you're in the government, the money doesn't matter. When people make big screw-ups in the private sector and they waste money, they get fired. In the government, they get promoted to a higher job.
Well, Lars, the private sector does make mistakes. That's why you see auto recalls every year. As to the post office, yes, it doesn't make as much money as FedEx. It costs a lot less. Let me give you an envelope and give you 50 cents and see if you can get it across the country to my mother without using the post office for just that 50 cents. The fact is, Lars, again, biggest parts of the government, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the military, health care, and education. That's all right with me.
All right, that's all the time we have, and it's a big reminder that I have to get my taxes done. Steve and Lars, thank you. We'll see you next week for Left Hook, Right Jab.